And our first topic is Candace Owens is addressing the Megyn Kelly, Matt Walsh drama. So yeah, if you haven't heard, Megyn Kelly and Matt Walsh were having a little back and forth of like, hey, like over trad wives and what a role of a woman should be or could be, and it got really interesting. But before we get to that, I got a question, and it is: do modern men want trad wives? Before I answer, what do you guys think?
I think traditional men want trad wives. I don't think a modern man would want a traditional wife. I feel like that doesn't really make sense because they obviously have a modern take on how they would want to live. Yeah.
Sorry, you're just gonna have to deal with it.
You can take your. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. So, I'm sorry. Yes. Do modern men want trad wives? I think a lot of them think they do, but when it comes down to what they discover a trad wife is, they're not really for what comes with that. Yeah.
That's an interesting take. So I think that a lot of men. I heard something interesting that really struck me this past week, and it's like, for a relationship to work, there's got to be polarity on both sides. And so if you have like a super masculine man, then he's going to need a probably more ultra feminine women, because the attraction lies in the middle of that polarity. And so as a society, we're getting more androgynous. So it's kind of muddying the waters where everybody's kind of in the middle, which is weird. And so since a lot of more modern men or more towards the middle, they want women that are more towards the middle in a lot of senses, even though all things considered, if we were kind of just in our left to our own devices, I guess, then they'd probably take on a more masculine role and want a woman that was more traditional. Now, what Matt Walsh and Megyn Kelly get to arguing about is more like, well, should a woman be more of a career woman? Like, is that okay? Or should, she just stay at home? And I think there's a blessing or there's benefits and, curses to both of them, right? And neither one is right. It's all about your preferred situation. And that's going to bring us to our quality sip, which is: there needs to be a balance of polarity between a man and a woman for a relationship to thrive. So kind of what I just alluded to. What do you guys think of that before we get into the clip?
Yeah. I mean, there absolutely needs to be a balance, because I think these days we don't even know what a man or a woman is or what they are supposed to embody. And so there's a lot of confusion when it comes to relationships, because we don't even know what the foundation of that relationship should be.
Yeah, that's good. That's true. I agree with it. Yeah, I agree with it.
All right. So let's get into this clip of Candace Owens breaking down the situation, and we'll have some commentary along the way.
A private jet.
People are very upset about trad wife culture, and Megyn Kelly and Matt Walsh have had a few back and forths regarding just this very thing. So I'll bring you up to speed. It's been going on for a while, but we can start at what I presume to be the beginning. In February of last year, Matt Walsh tweeted this: "All a man wants is to come home from a long day at work to a grateful wife and children who are glad to see him, and dinner cooking on the stove. This is literally all it takes to make a man happy. We are simple. Give us this and you will have given us nearly everything we need."
What do you guys think of that statement?
I feel like it's simple, and I think that's true. I'm not a man, but I would think like he just wants to come home to a peaceful house with some good food. That's it. That's all he needs.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with that. Of course, I'm not a man, but I would imagine that with everything a man has to deal with in the world, all he wants to do is come home and feel like he's the man in his home, and that he's loved and cared for and respected and appreciated. And so I can imagine that is what the majority of men want.
So I would say this. So Tom Bill Yu, who runs a YouTube channel, big YouTube channel, and he runs a show called Impact Theory. So one thing he often says is that all a woman has to do is make his man feel powerful. If a woman makes her man feel like the most powerful man in the world, then he'll literally be the happiest man in the world. And I would agree with that statement wholeheartedly.
I do
If
too.
a woman, is there and in a very, I guess, ethical way, boost your man ego in a positive direction and not just boost it just to be like, hey, you can take on anything, but like in a realistic way. It's like, hey, babe, maybe not this, but you're great at this area, and you boost up what he's really good at, and keep his spirits high. That's really all that we're looking for. And in a lot of cases, food brings about happiness, especially within men. But to a lot of people, like you have a good meal, and it's like receiving a good hug in a lot of different cases, and it nourishes your body. Unless
Yeah.
you're, depending on what you're eating, of course. But
It's like that saying, what do they say? A way to a man's
man's
heart
heart
is
is
through
through
his
his
stomach.
stomach,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I would agree. But I think the basis of what this tweet is getting at is like, you want to do things to make your man feel powerful. And one of the ways that you can do that is like, he just came back from work. Oh, let me just put a meal on his plate. He won't have to worry about that. Let me make sure it's something that he likes so that he's, enjoying his time as he decompresses from work. But this is also speaking to only one type of relationship. And this
Yeah.
is also a tweet. So it's not like he's doing a breakdown of the dynamics between every situation of every relationship that could be had.
Right.
So,
Well, Megyn Kelly did not like that. She responded and she said, true for some men, sure. And being a stay-at-home mom is a beautiful choice. But many of us have men who don't want this at all, Matt Walsh blog, who want the vibrancy and excitement of a wife with a career that makes her happy and lights up the fam. Happy to have such a man in @DougBrunt. Okay, so right off the bat,
Wait, I just thought it was kind of random that she responded in that way because it wasn't he wasn't like he had to, or he wasn't like he mentioned, it wasn't like he mentioned
oh, sorry.
being a stay-at-home mom. He just mentioned like, hey, when your man comes home, have food for him. That doesn't necessarily mean like you have to be there with freshly cooked food. Like you can have meal prepped food for the week already there for him. So like when he comes home, that's something he doesn't have to think about. So I feel like she was, I mean, Candace says it soon, but I feel like she was projecting.
definitely projecting. That's exactly what I thought, because it's what always happens on social media. There's definitely no room for nuance. There's no room for you understanding the context in which they are saying whatever it is they're saying. There's no room for that. And, you could say you like peanut butter jelly sandwiches. Someone will come in and be like, what about bananas?
Yeah.
And I'm like, nobody talked about bananas. No one said anything about it. So it's like, when you come in with that thought process, it's kind of like, that's where your mind went when thinking of this subject, but that's not what the original poster of
Yeah.
that tweet was. That's not where their thoughts were.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to decide if that tweet that she responded with was a little hostile or if she was just trying to explain her piece.
Yeah.
Because I kind of see both, and I'm trying to take my own bias out and see if that's what's really happening, because I can't decide right now, because it
Yeah.
feels
Yeah.
like it's projection and her being a little hostile towards Matt Walsh in that situation.
That could be it. That's a good take. I think, in playing devil's advocate, I guess, I believe that she's trying to say that, hey, one of the main conservative talking points right now is that, hey, women need to be more traditional in their roles and kind of take on more stay-at-home moms, because there's a big push with this tradcon or trad wife movement. And so I think she's like, hey, wait a minute, there's a lot of women out here that are conservative, that espouse these values, that live by these values, that do have, very successful working lives. Now, Candace does go ahead and later and talks about, hey, that's very far in between Like you're the exception to the rule in a lot of cases where you're going out and you are just, boss lady, but also conservative and taking care of your man or whatever. But that's what I think she's trying to get at, is saying like, hey, Matt Walsh, I know this is a big talking point, but don't box, all women in a box, especially conservative women. And so I think that's where she's coming from. But I don't think that's Matt Walsh's intent with the tweet.
No,
I
neither.
think he's just speaking to his own experience
Yeah.
because, and I would say that it is projection because Matt Walsh is talking about his perspective from his experience
Yep.
because that's his experience. And then for Megyn Kelly to jump in and be like, hey, actually, not everybody's like that.
This is my experience.
This is my experience.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, fair enough. You could have just added to the conversation without being so hostile.
Exactly.
You could have just
or
been
made
like,
your own tweet.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like if you really wanted to, if we're pushing conversation forward, then it's like, well, hey, yeah, I really respect Matt's perspective, but in my situation, this is how a conservative relationship can work as well. And that's not what she did. She kind of came at it was like, well, actually.
Yeah, not all
It was
women.
like, whoa,
Like he didn't
easy.
say when what?
He didn't say all women.
Yeah,
Right.
he never said.
I don't even think he mentioned women.
Yeah,
like
he
that.
never said like
Yeah.
you can't work. Like he never mentioned anything about stay-at-home mom versus being at home.
He did not.
So that's where I'm like,
Yeah, like where are you getting that? Right.
Yeah.
He could very well be talking about a woman that prioritizes family
Yeah.
and still has a career. He could very well be
Exactly.
talking about that.
I feel like it was a universal tweet.
It was.
Well, let's get into what Candace has to
Why
say.
I think that might have been a little bit of projecting is because he didn't say that women shouldn't work. He didn't say anything about being a stay-at-home mom or a working mom. He simply said, this is what makes men happy. I am somebody that both works and makes food for my husband and for my family. I actually love to cook. So I thought that was kind of a strange reaction, but let it go. And then we fast forward to the end of last year, and I was on maternity leave when this happened, but I was dying to weigh in. So we are going to do it now. So I'll set the stage for you. Essentially, a young woman, yes, this is Maddie, the same Maddie that eventually gets into this back forth with her dad. But Maddie was on a date and she decided to talk to TikTok about how pleasantly surprised she was since she previously defined herself as a feminist. Take a listen.
I went on a date this week and I felt the feminism leaving my body. I live on the east side of LA, and if you don't know what that means, it's sort of like the artsier part of LA, It's
That's hilarious.
How do you feel the feminism leaving your body? That sounds crazy.
Her
As soon as a
nature was
man
kicking
starts
in.
acting like a man
Yeah.
Oh,
around you,
Yep.
and now you're
Just-
like, oh, this is what it feels like?
Yeah.
This is what it is?
It's like, I like this life.
Yeah, just make you revert right back to your biology.
Exactly.
It's people say it's like Brooklyn and New York. So I go on dates with a lot of men and women who, live over here. There's always a negotiation about who pays, and that's
she's
great.
just
I like
dating
to pay
everybody.
for people, all that. But what I will say is that I sort of fell into going on a date with the most guy I've ever been on a date with. And he's from West,
Guys
Santa
guy.
Monica. He's a bro, right? A guy's guy is usually not my type. I cannot remember the last time that I went on a date with a straight bro, you know what I'm saying? But it befell me. It befell me in an organic fashion. So I'm on this date with this guy.
Is this like Valley Girl? What
don't
is
think
that?
so.
What is she doing right now?
I don't hear Valley Girl, but I
think that's
hear
just
outskirts.
California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just California?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see that.
That's why it's so foreign to me, I guess. Because I've been on the
Yes.
opposite coast my whole life. So, yeah, she's talking. I'm like, it's English, but I don't know
sounds
what.
different.
Yeah.
What's the word?
Dialect?
Vernacular dialect?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
The way she is speaking
Yeah.
is and the cadence is it's very
Yeah.
interesting. It's fascinating. It really is.
And the thing about a guy's guy is he's putting his card down. He's paying for
Just-
everything. And I really it sort of activated something feral in me. I'm not gonna lie. We went to another bar and
like a
he was
cat.
gonna go to the bathroom. So I was getting prepared to pay for our drinks because he's been paying all night. Of course I'm gonna pay for the next round. But as he's going to leave for the bathroom, he turns to me and he hands me his credit card. And he goes, "Here's my card. Get us whatever."
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Might be time for me to get away from all these, liberal snowflakes on the east side.
So we, of course, know that Maddie
That's
is a lefty.
crazy.
We've learned this from her father recently. But I love this video. Like I said, Maddie is pretty talented. And I love this video because it really speaks to the fact that women are doing a lot of things and pursuing a lot of things that don't naturally make them happy. And let me tell you something. Naturally, the majority of women like men who are protectors, right? So one form that she is responding to right there is he's paying for the date, right? He's taking charge. He tells her, you can get whatever, I'll be back, and sends his credit card over to her across the table. And she's very impressed by this because men, when men provide, are sort of stepping into this traditional role. And of course, so much of the work that I do is talking about the fact that I think feminists have ruined everything for women because it's making us pursue things that don't ultimately make us happy. So Matt Walsh sees this video, he responds to it, and he says this: she's impressed that the guy paid, which is fine. Women are naturally attracted to providers. But if she likes this aspect of traditional masculinity, she has to accept the rest of it and be willing to play her part and be traditionally feminine. That's where things usually break down for feminists. Very interesting point. It makes me think, and I think that he's actually right. But Megyn Kelly did not like this at all. And she replied and she said, actually, no, she doesn't, Matt. She can find a man who pays and also gets completely hot for a working wife who doesn't cook or behave like any sort of traditional wife. Again, I'm going to say
Projection.
I know.
Because no, he didn't say nothing like.
That she didn't. Yeah, he didn't say anything about not working or not doing anything.
And if she really wanted a conversation, she would have asked for clarification on a few things like, what do you mean by traditional wife? Or what does she have to accept? Like things like that to indicate that you're willing to have a conversation about this, but you're not. So therefore, you are projecting your own experience yet again. So,
But I will say, like, the guy that Maddie went on a date with, if he's like a bro's bro and he's more traditional, I mean, there's something about her that he was interested in, knowing that she's not a traditional woman. So maybe for a few people, it doesn't have to go that way.
right. And we don't know all the aspects of Maddie, especially when she's on a date or how she acts or, yes, she calls herself a feminist, but maybe she's not a radical feminist, like maybe feminism for her means what it meant back when feminism first started. So who knows how she was on that date, and exactly he was attracted to her. So I mean, it doesn't always mean that you have to wear the frilly dresses, or it's more of an essence that a man is attracted to in a woman, and her being authentically herself in every aspect and not adhering to an ideology because it's popular.
Right, yeah, that's what I was about to say. It
Yeah.
seems like when we hear traditional woman, it's like, okay,
Prairie muffin.
this is exactly what it means. And those could be characteristics. So, like,
Right.
a good example is in the Bible when it talks about love. It doesn't really give you a definition of what love is. It gives you a bunch of descriptions. And it gives you descriptions in various contexts in different places in the Bible. So one of the big things is like love is patient, love is kind, and then it tells you what love is not. But then it also tells you like God is love, and then Jesus says there's no greater love than to lay down one's life for his friends.
Exactly.
So it's giving you all these different components of or ingredients of what love actually is, but that's not what love is in essence. And so when we talk about what is a traditional woman, we can talk about the different characteristics that she possesses, but I think at the end of the day we're talking about her feminine nature. It's like what is that softness that she brings? And I think this young lady, despite maybe her more liberal ideas that she lives by, she seems like a pretty soft,
I would say so.
Yeah.
She seems
woman.
pretty.
She's not aggressive.
No.
As far as
she
like,
seems fun to be around.
Yeah, and so in a dynamic, like a guy who's masculine is going to be attracted because she's a soft woman. Now she might have different things and live a lifestyle that's not maybe conducive to his, but that initial attraction is from the fact that she's soft and he's more of a hard masculine guy, and then now the rest of it's got to work itself out.
Exactly.
But I think what Matt Walsh is talking about is what is the preference of a man. It's like what is most ideal, I guess.
Yeah.
So if a guy is, traditionally masculine in a sense, and we attribute these characteristics of, providing, protecting, and, all these different things in a traditional masculine sense, well, then it would make sense for a woman to take on the traditional feminine role as well, for the polarity to balance out and for it to
Yeah.
actually work. That doesn't mean that there's not necessarily attraction, that attraction can't take place if that's not in place. But for it to thrive, like we were saying, we can put up the quality sip. There needs to be polarity between the man and woman for the relationship to thrive.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are. So we'll go through a little bit more of this before we conclude.
Seems like she might be projecting here, because I just don't see anything problematic about what Matt said there. That if you want guys and you are responding to them being traditionally masculine, yeah, okay, like then that guy might be responding to you if you are traditionally feminine. So Matt asked that question back. He said to Megyn, why should the man play the traditionally masculine role of paying for the meals if the woman is not going to play the traditionally feminine role in return? This shouldn't even be controversial. A woman who accepts gender roles when she can get a free meal out of it, but then rejects them in every other context, is being self-centered and inconsistent. And that's to put it gently.
So here's one of my big things is, one of the big progressive ideas is the elimination of roles altogether. When in reality, you have to play a role in any scenario that you're in. You have to take on whatever role is required for you to get something done. And so the fact that people don't want to take on traditional roles is like, fine, but you got to take on a role that's going to be effective, right? And oftentimes we want to take the role that benefits us the most. But that doesn't mean that it's going to benefit the people around you. And so the compromise has to be what's going to benefit everybody at the same time. So maybe you don't get all of your wants and desires, met, but at a base level, everybody is content and happy and benefits from the situation. But it seems like the role that a lot of people want to play now is, I want my cake and I want to eat it too.
Yeah.
And everything needs to be, served to me, rather than you saying like, no, I'm going to be of service to other people so that we can all eat and we can all benefit from the situation as much as possible. And so I think that's the disconnect. Megyn Kelly's like, yeah, there's more than one way to skin a cat, but the way that she's kind of alluding to is like, hey,
I can do what I want and get what I want.
yeah, and
I can be how I am and get what I want.
Yeah, and I think Candace I think we're going to be done with this clip, but I think Candace later basically kind of says, like, yeah, that doesn't always work. It might work in your situation, but that's not a very ideal, like, situation or dynamic for a relationship to thrive. Now, obviously, Megyn Kelly's been married for a long time. She has, I don't know how many kids, but I know she has multiple kids, and she seems happy in a relationship. But
great.
for the
Yeah.
average person, it's probably not going to work out too well.
Exactly. And I mean, I like what you were saying about roles too, because I mean, even God plays his roles as he's serving us too. I mean, he does through the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Each of them are him, but serving different roles in the way that they're being expressed towards us and what they mean to us. And so the fact that we're not willing to have a servant's heart and do that for each other really shows the hardness of our hearts in these times, because when it comes to relationships, you have to be willing to serve. So
Yeah, and the most fulfilling kind of love is a sacrificial love, not a selfish love. So that's also interesting.
yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, so, I mean, we were going to ask this question one more time.
I got a question.
Do modern men want the trad wives? Those are our thoughts on the matter. Who do you think is right in this situation? Do you think Matt Walsh is more correct in his assessment? Do you think that's more ideal, or do you think Megyn Kelly has a point? Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments section. We're going to get out of here for this segment, but we will be back for our next segment on the Quality Entertainment Network as the weekly tea continues.